Queen of Giant Dragons laughed at breeding with a human, then she gave birth to twins. Who Changed History Part 1, First Contact and the Proposal. Year is 2187. Humanity has finally achieved faster-than-light travel and begins exploring distant star systems. Captain Jake Morrison leads the exploration vessel Starbound on a mission to catalog habitable worlds in the Andromeda sector. On the planet Draconis Prime, humanity encounters an ancient and powerful civilization, the Drakkar, a race of giant dragons capable of taking humanoid forms. These beings have ruled the galaxy for over 50,000 years, possessing technology and biological capabilities far beyond human understanding. The Drakkar are facing a crisis. Their birth rates have plummeted over the millennia, and their once mighty empire is slowly dying out. Queen Sarathiel, the ruler of the Drakkar and the largest and most powerful of her kind, has watched her people dwindle from billions to mere millions. Ambassador Kyle Chen is sent to negotiate a diplomatic alliance. During the negotiations, the human delegation learns of the Drakkar's reproductive crisis. Dr. Lisa Cameron, a xenobiologist on the human team, proposes a radical solution: genetic compatibility testing between humans and Drakkar. The initial tests reveal something unprecedented. Despite being from completely different evolutionary trees, human and Drakkar DNA possess a strange resonance. The science teams discover that interbreeding might not only be possible, but could potentially create offspring with combined strengths of both species. When the proposal is formally presented to Queen Sarathiel, her reaction shakes the council chambers. Her laughter echoes through the crystalline halls, a sound that humans had never heard before. Genuine amusement mixed with disbelief. You believe your tiny, short-lived species could successfully breed with the ancient blood of dragons? Sarathiel's voice carries both mockery and curiosity. Humans live barely a century. We endure for millennia. You cannot even breathe fire or fly with your own wings. What could possibly come from such a union? The Drakkar Council shares her amusement. The very concept seems absurd to them. Humans are seen as clever but fragile newcomers to the galactic stage, interesting but ultimately insignificant. However, Jake Morrison steps forward with a bold counteroffer. He volunteers himself for the compatibility program, not as a mere test subject but as a potential partner. His reasoning is simple. Humanity has always succeeded by adapting, by combining strengths, and by daring to try what others considered impossible. Against all expectations and the advice of her own council, Queen Sarathiel accepts. Perhaps it is boredom after 50 centuries of life. Perhaps it is curiosity. Perhaps it is the first flutter of desperate hope for her dying species. She agrees to the experiment, still convinced it will prove the foolishness of human ambition. Part 2. The Unlikely Bond. The bonding process between Jake and Sarathiel begins as a purely clinical arrangement. The Drakkar Science Council monitors every interaction, expecting failure at any moment. The cultural differences are enormous. Sarathiel views time in centuries while Jake thinks in decades. She remembers the rise and fall of civilizations. He remembers childhood summers. Early attempts at achieving genetic compatibility fail repeatedly. The Drakkar scientists begin to lose interest, their initial curiosity fading. Queen Sarathiel herself grows increasingly frustrated, feeling vindicated in her original mockery, but Jake refuses to give up. He begins spending time with Sarathiel outside the sterile laboratory environments, trying to understand her not as a specimen but as a person. He asks about her life, her memories, her losses. For the first time in centuries, someone treats the mighty queen not with fear or formal reverence but with genuine interest in who she is. Slowly, something unexpected develops. Sarathiel begins to see beyond the human's brief lifespan and fragile body. She discovers that Jake possesses something her long-lived people have lost: intensity of purpose. Every moment matters to humans because they have so few. Their passion burns bright because the flame is brief. She shares with Jake the loneliness of immortality, the grief of watching friends, lovers, and entire generations turn to dust. He shares with her the human drive to leave a mark, to matter despite their cosmic insignificance. A mutual respect grows into genuine affection. Dr. Cameron and her team make a breakthrough. The key to compatibility isn't just genetic. It's emotional and empathic. The Drakkar possess latent psionic abilities that respond to deep emotional bonds. As Jake and Sarathiel's connection deepens, their very DNA begins to resonate in harmony. The other Drakkar watch in amazement as the impossible becomes possible. Queen Sarathiel, the proud and ancient ruler who had laughed at the very concept, finds herself genuinely falling in love with a human. The bonding ceremony that follows is witnessed by both species. It is historic, controversial, and beautiful. When Sarathiel takes her true dragon form, spanning nearly 300 feet from nose to tail, Jake stands before her without fear. When she returns to her humanoid form, she weeps for the first time in 1,000 years. 6 months later, Dr. Cameron confirms what everyone had thought impossible. Queen Sarathiel is pregnant. The news spreads across both human and Drakkar space like wildfire. Reactions range from joy to outrage, hope to fear, but none can deny that history is being made. Part 3. The birth that shook two worlds. The pregnancy proves difficult and unprecedented. Sarathiel's biology wars with the hybrid nature of the developing offspring. Human doctors and Drakkar healers work together around the clock, learning from each other, combining magic and science in ways neither species had imagined possible. Political tensions rise on both sides. Hardline factions among the Drakkar view the hybrid offspring as an abomination, a dilution of their pure ancient bloodline. A group called the Flamekeepers, led by Lord Drakthos, plots to prevent the birth by any means necessary. On the human side, fearmongers spread propaganda about the hybrids becoming super predators who will dominate humanity. Senator Victoria Lang leads a movement to declare the breeding program illegal and demands that Jake return to Earth immediately. Jake and Sarathiel face these threats together. The bond between them has grown unbreakable, but the strain shows. Sarathiel experiences pain unlike anything in her long life, and Jake is helpless to do more than support her emotionally. At 7 months, complications arise. The fetuses are growing at an alarming rate, far faster than either pure human or pure Drakkar offspring. Dr. Cameron discovers that the twins possess active DNA from both species. Not a simple mixing, but a synergistic combination. They are something entirely new. An assassination attempt by the Flamekeepers nearly succeeds. Drakthos himself infiltrates the birthing chamber disguised as a healer. Only the intervention of Commander Amy Foster, head of the human security detail, prevents disaster. The attack leaves Sarathiel injured and triggers premature labor. The birth is chaotic and terrifying. Sarathiel's dragon form manifests involuntarily, her pain and fear overwhelming her control. The medical facility nearly collapses under her thrashing. Jake climbs onto her massive head, pressing his forehead to her scales, using their bond to help her find focus. After 18 hours of labor that damages much of the birthing complex, 2 infants are born. The firstborn is a girl, who emerges screaming with a cry that causes harmonic vibrations in the glass. The secondborn, a boy, arrives silently but radiating waves of heat that warm the entire chamber. Dr. Cameron and her team stare in awe. The twins appear mostly human in their default form, but with subtle differences. Crystalline patterns beneath translucent skin, eyes that shift color with emotion, and a presence that seems to fill the room despite their infant size. Queen Sarathiel, exhausted and transformed by the experience, holds her children and weeps again. Jake, overwhelmed with wonder and terror at what they've created, names them. The girl is called Elena. The boy is called Nathan. The first time baby Elena sneezes, she accidentally releases a small puff of flame. The first time baby Nathan cries, his wail contains a subsonic frequency that cracks the reinforced windows. The medical team realizes these children are not simply hybrids. They are something new, something powerful, something that could change everything. News of the successful birth spreads across known space. Reactions are explosive. The Drakkar who had mocked the idea now see a possible salvation for their species. Humans who had feared the outcome now witness a bridge between worlds. But both also see a threat. Beings who combine the best traits of 2 powerful species might render both parents obsolete, as Elena and Nathan are presented to both the Drakkar Grand Council and the United Earth Assembly via holographic transmission. One thing becomes clear to all observers. The twins are not just children. They are the future, for better or worse. Part 4. Growing powers and rising tensions, Alina and Nathan grow at an accelerated rate, reaching the equivalent of 10 human years within just 3 years of life. Their development astounds scientists from both species. The twins demonstrate abilities beyond what either parent species possesses alone. Elena shows an affinity for energy manipulation. She can absorb various forms of radiation and convert them at will. By age 3, she accidentally heals Commander Foster's broken arm with a touch, channeling the energy of nearby lights into biological restoration. The medical facility was built into the side of a mountain. Jake walked through halls that were sized for creatures much larger than him, making him feel like a child in a world of giants. Dr. Lisa Cameron walked beside him, carrying her equipment. "Remember, this is just initial testing," Lisa said. "We need to see if there is any biological compatibility at all. Do not expect anything to happen quickly." Jake nodded. They entered a large chamber where Drakkar scientists waited. Queen Sarathiel was already there, standing in her humanoid form. She wore simple white robes instead of her usual royal clothing. Without all the ceremony, she looked different. Still powerful, but somehow more real. "Captain Morrison," she said formally. "Shall we begin?" The tests were uncomfortable and embarrassing. The Drakkar scientists took samples of blood, skin, and tissue. They ran scans that made Jake's whole body tingle. They asked questions about human biology that made him wish Kyle was there instead. Through it all, Sarathiel underwent the same procedures, submitting to tests with a patience that surprised Jake. After 6 hours, the lead scientist, a golden-scaled Drakkar named Verathan, reviewed the results. His expression was confused. "This should not be possible," Verathan said slowly. "But there is a genetic resonance, very faint but present, as if both species evolved from a common ancestor, which we know is impossible." "What does that mean?" Sarathiel asked. "It means breeding might be theoretically possible," Verathan said, "but only theoretically. The biological mechanics are still completely incompatible. In your dragon form, Your Majesty, you are 300 feet long. Captain Morrison is 6 feet tall. The physical differences alone make this impossible." "What about in your humanoid forms?" Lisa asked. Verathan hesitated. "Perhaps, but there is more than just physical compatibility needed. Our research into Drakkar reproduction shows that successful breeding requires an empathic bond between partners. Without that connection, conception cannot occur. So they need to form an emotional connection?" Lisa asked. "More than emotional," Verathan explained. "Drakkar possess psionic abilities that create a deep bond with their mates. This bond allows their genetics to merge properly. Without it, any attempt at reproduction will fail." Sarathiel laughed, but this time it was bitter rather than mocking. "So we must somehow form a bond between a 5,000-year-old dragon queen and a human who will die of old age before I even notice the passage of time." "Yes, this sounds very likely to succeed." Over the next 3 weeks, Jake and Sarathiel met regularly for testing. The Drakkar scientists monitored everything, looking for any sign of the empathic bond forming. Nothing happened. The genetic resonance remained faint and unstable. The physical incompatibility seemed impossible to overcome. Jake found the whole process frustrating. He spent his days being poked and scanned, then returned to the Starbound each night feeling like a failure. Sarathiel clearly thought the whole thing was a waste of time. She was polite but distant, treating the tests like a duty she had to endure. On the 23rd day, Jake decided to change his approach. Instead of going to the medical facility, he asked if he could meet Sarathiel somewhere else, somewhere more comfortable. She agreed, perhaps out of curiosity. They met in a garden on one of the mountain terraces. It was beautiful, with plants that looked like a cross between flowers and crystals. The view stretched for hundreds of miles across the red landscape of Draconis Prime. Sarathiel arrived in her dragon form, landing with a thunder that shook the ground. She was massive, her purple-black scales gleaming in the double suns. Jake did not run or show fear. He just stood there looking up at her. "Why are we here instead of the medical facility?" Sarathiel asked. Her voice in dragon form was even deeper, resonating in Jake's chest. "Because I am tired of being treated like a test subject," Jake said. "I want to talk to you. Not as a captain to a queen, but as one person to another." "We are not the same kind of person," Sarathiel pointed out. "No, we are not," Jake agreed. "But we both care about our people. We both feel responsibility for others. That is something we have in common." Sarathiel shifted back to her humanoid form. She sat down on a stone bench that had probably been made for dragons but worked well enough for conversation. Jake sat at the other end, leaving space between them. "Tell me about your life," Jake said. "What was it like 5,000 years ago?" "Why do you want to know?" "Because the scientists are wrong," Jake said. "They think we need to form a bond through their tests and procedures. But bonds do not form in laboratories. They form through understanding, through knowing someone." Sarathiel looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she began to talk. She told him about the early days of her reign, when the Drakkar controlled half the galaxy. She spoke of wars fought across 1,000 worlds, of treaties and betrayals, of allies who had turned to dust millennia ago. She told him about the first time she noticed that fewer Drakkar children were being born, and how she had spent centuries trying to find a solution. Jake listened. He did not interrupt or try to relate everything back to human experience. He just listened. When she finished, Sarathiel looked at him expectantly. "Now you will tell me that humans have similar problems and we are not so different after all?" "No," Jake said. "I cannot relate to most of what you just told me. I have lived 32 years. I cannot imagine living 5,000. I have never ruled anything bigger than a ship crew. I have never watched civilizations rise and fall." "Then why did you ask me to tell you?" Sarathiel asked. "Because now I understand something about you," Jake said. "You are lonely. You have been lonely for a very long time. Everyone around you either dies or treats you like you are above them. No one talks to you like a real person." Sarathiel's eyes flashed with anger. "You presume too much, human." "Maybe," Jake said. "But am I wrong?" The anger faded. Sarathiel looked away, staring out at the horizon. "No," she said quietly. "You are not wrong." They sat in silence for a while. Then Jake began to talk. He told her about growing up on Earth, about joining the space program, about the first time he saw an alien world. He told her about the pressure he felt, representing all of humanity in first contact situations. He told her about the fear he had felt when he volunteered for this program, and how he still felt it every day. "You are afraid?" Sarathiel asked, surprised. "Terrified," Jake admitted. "I have no idea what I am doing. I just know that if I do not try, your people die and I spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have made a difference." "That is very human," Sarathiel said, rushing forward without knowing the outcome. "It is foolish." "Yes," Jake agreed. "But humans are good at being foolish. Sometimes our foolishness works out." Sarathiel actually smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. "I am beginning to understand why the universe has not killed your species yet." After that day, things changed. Jake and Sarathiel continued meeting in the garden instead of the laboratory. They talked about everything. She told him about Drakkar philosophy and history. He told her about human art and music. She taught him some of the Drakkar language. He taught her card games from Earth. The scientists noticed the change immediately. The genetic resonance between them grew stronger. The empathic bond they needed was beginning to form. Lisa was excited but cautious. "You are making progress," she told Jake. "But there is still a huge gap. You need a much deeper connection." The breakthrough came during their 7th week together. Jake had brought his portable music player and was introducing Sarathiel to human music. He played her everything from classical symphonies to modern rock. She listened with interest, trying to understand why humans needed music. Then he played her a song his mother used to sing to him as a child. It was simple and sweet, about finding home no matter how far you wander. As it played, Jake felt suddenly homesick. Earth was 3 months of travel away. He might never see it again. Sarathiel saw his expression change. "What is wrong?" "Nothing," Jake said, wiping his eyes quickly. "Just the song. It reminds me of my mother." "Where is she now?" "Dead," Jake said. "Cancer 6 years ago. She was only 58. "So young," Sarathiel said softly. "I forget that human lifespans are so brief." "Your mother did not even live to see your greatest achievement." "No," Jake said. "She died before I became a captain." "Before any of this." Sarathiel was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "I envy you." "What?" "You loved your mother deeply," Sarathiel said. "I can hear it in your voice when you speak of her. That intensity of feeling, that deep connection. Drakkar do not form bonds like that. We live too long. We love, but it is spread thin across centuries. We do not burn with passion because we have too much time." "That sounds lonely," Jake said. "It is," Sarathiel admitted. I have had mates before. Dozens of them across thousands of years. I cared for them, but I never felt what you feel. I never formed bonds that made me weep at a simple song. Jake looked at her and saw something he had not seen before. Under all that power and age, Sarathiel was missing something fundamental. She had lived forever, but had never really lived with the intensity that humans did. It is not about how long you live, Jake said quietly. It is about how deeply you feel while you are alive. Sarathiel met his eyes. For the first time since they met, she looked at him not as a small, short-lived creature. The pregnancy was unlike anything the doctors had seen before. Sarathiel's body went through changes that confused both Drakkar healers and human physicians. Some days she seemed perfectly normal. Other days her dragon nature would take over and she would shift forms involuntarily, her body trying to decide what shape was best for carrying hybrid children. Dr. Lisa Cameron had set up a permanent medical facility in the royal palace. She worked around the clock with a team of specialists from both species. Every day brought new surprises and new concerns. The fetuses are growing too fast, Lisa told Jake during the 3rd month. At this rate, she will give birth at 7 months instead of 9. Is that dangerous? Jake asked, worried. I do not know, Lisa admitted. We have no baseline for what is normal in a pregnancy like this. Everything is new. The political situation made everything worse. On Draconis Prime, a faction called the Flame Keepers had emerged. They were led by Lord Drakthos, a red-scaled dragon who believed that mixing with humans would destroy Drakkar culture. He gave speeches in the capital, calling the hybrid pregnancy an abomination. These children will be neither Drakkar nor human, Drakthos declared to his followers. They will be monsters, freaks, and when they are born, they will mark the beginning of the end for pure Drakkar blood. The Drakkar Council tried to suppress the Flame Keepers, but their message was spreading. Some Drakkar agreed with them. The idea of their ancient, pure bloodline mixing with short-lived humans felt wrong to many. On Earth, the situation was just as bad. Senator Victoria Lang had started a campaign against the hybrid program. She appeared on news shows, warning that the hybrid children would be too powerful, too dangerous. These creatures will have the strength of dragons and who knows what else, Lang said to millions of viewers. What happens when they grow up? Will they see humans as equals or as prey? We are playing with forces we do not understand. Fear spread through human space. Some called for Jake to be arrested when he returned to Earth. Others demanded that the pregnancy be terminated for everyone's safety. The United Earth Assembly held emergency sessions to debate the issue. Jake tried to ignore the politics and focus on Sarathiel. She was having a difficult time. The pregnancy was taking a toll on her body. She was in pain often, though she tried to hide it. Her empathic bond with Jake meant he felt her pain too, and it scared him. At 5 months, Sarathiel looked like a human woman at 9 months pregnant. Her stomach was huge, far larger than it should be. Lisa's scans showed 2 distinct life forms inside her. Twins, Lisa said, showing them the scan results. Both are developing rapidly. Their DNA is fascinating. It is not simply mixed. It is something new. Something that combines traits from both species in ways we never expected. What does that mean? Sarathiel asked. She was lying on a bed that had been built to support her dragon form if needed. It means your children will be unique, Lisa said carefully. They will have abilities that neither pure humans nor pure Drakkar possess. But I cannot predict exactly what those abilities will be. As the pregnancy progressed, tensions grew. The Flame Keepers became more aggressive. They held protests outside the palace. Some talked openly about stopping the birth by force. The royal guards had to be doubled. Jake requested military support from Earth. Commander Amy Foster arrived with a security team. She was a tough woman in her 40s, a veteran of multiple conflicts. She took one look at the situation and immediately increased security protocols. We are not letting anyone get near you or the Queen, Amy told Jake. My people will screen everyone who enters the palace, even Drakkar healers. Do you think it is that serious? Jake asked. I think there are people on both sides who would kill to prevent this birth, Amy said bluntly. So yes, it is that serious. She was right to be cautious. At 6.5 months, Lord Drakthos made his move. It happened during what was supposed to be a routine medical check. A Drakkar healer named Salanthus arrived for the scheduled appointment. He had been cleared by security and had worked with the medical team before. No one suspected anything. Salanthus entered the medical chamber where Sarathiel was resting. Lisa was reviewing test results. Jake was sitting beside the bed holding Sarathiel's hand. The healer approached with his medical equipment. "How are you feeling, Your Majesty?" Salanthus asked. "Tired," Sarathiel said, "but well enough." Salanthus nodded and began preparing an injection. "This will help with the pain and fatigue." Amy Foster had been standing by the door. Something about the healer's movements caught her attention. His hands were shaking slightly. His breathing was too fast. These were signs of stress, of someone about to do something they did not want to do. "Wait," Amy said, moving forward. "Let me see that injection." Salanthus's eyes widened. In a flash, his humanoid form dropped and he became a dragon. He was smaller than Sarathiel, but still massive in the confined space. The needle in his hand was suddenly a spear of ice formed from his dragon magic. He lunged towards Sarathiel's pregnant belly. Amy drew her weapon and fired. The energy blast hit Salanthus in the shoulder, throwing off his aim. The ice spear struck the bed instead of Sarathiel. Jake threw himself over Sarathiel, trying to protect her. More guards rushed in. They tackled the dragon form Salanthus, wrestling him to the ground. It took 6 guards to hold him down.
Amy ran to Sarathiel's side. "Are you hurt?"
Amy demanded. "No," Sarathiel gasped. But the shock, the fear, it triggered something. Lisa's face went pale. "She is going into labor." The medical chamber erupted into chaos. Lisa shouted orders while her team scrambled to prepare. Sarathiel's face twisted in pain. Her body began shifting between forms. One moment she was humanoid, the next her dragon nature tried to emerge. "Get her to the birthing facility," Lisa yelled. "Now." They moved Sarathiel on a floating platform through the palace halls. Jake ran alongside, holding her hand. The empathic bond between them meant he felt every contraction, every wave of pain. It was overwhelming. The birthing facility had been specially built for this occasion. It was huge, with reinforced walls that could withstand a dragon's full strength. Medical equipment from both species filled the room. Drakkar healers and human doctors worked side by side. Sarathiel's pain intensified. She lost control of her form completely, shifting into her full dragon shape. The birthing facility groaned under her size. Her tail thrashed, smashing equipment. Her wings tried to spread in the confined space. "We need to help her regain control," one of the Drakkar healers said. "But she is too far gone in the pain." Jake did not hesitate. He climbed onto Sarathiel's massive dragon head, ignoring the danger. Her scales were hot enough to burn his hands, but he pressed his forehead against her snout. "Sarathiel," he said through the empathic bond, "I am here. I am with you. You are not alone." He felt her mind wild with pain and fear. He pushed his own calm toward her through the bond, trying to anchor her. Slowly, she began to focus. The thrashing stopped. She was still in dragon form, but more controlled. "That is it," Jake whispered. "We can do this together." The labor lasted 18 hours. It was brutal. Sarathiel's roars shook the palace. The medical facility walls cracked in several places. Jake stayed with her the entire time, maintaining the empathic connection that kept her focused. Finally, Lisa shouted, "I see the first one." The firstborn came into the world screaming. Her cry was strange, creating harmonic vibrations that made the glass in the windows hum. Lisa caught her quickly, checking her over. "It is a girl," Lisa said, her voice full of wonder. The baby looked mostly human at first glance. She had Jake's brown hair and Sarathiel's purple eyes. But as Lisa examined her, she noticed patterns under the skin, like scales that were not quite visible. The baby's eyes shifted color as she cried, going from purple to gold to green. "Here comes the second," another doctor called. The second-born arrived much more quietly. He did not cry at first, and for a horrible moment everyone thought something was wrong. Then he opened his eyes and the temperature in the room jumped 10 degrees. He was radiating heat. "A boy," Lisa said, quickly checking him. "Both alive. Both healthy." Sarathiel finally shifted back to humanoid form, exhausted beyond measure. She was covered in sweat and shaking from the effort. Jake climbed down and stood beside her as Lisa brought the babies to them. "Your daughter," Lisa said, placing the girl in Sarathiel's arms. "And your son," she added, giving the boy to Jake. Jake looked down at his son and felt his heart break open with love. The baby boy looked up at him with eyes that were too aware for a newborn. Those eyes held an intelligence that was frightening and beautiful at the same time. "What should we name them?" Sarathiel asked weakly. Jake looked at his daughter, who had stopped crying and was watching her mother with those color-shifting eyes. "Elena," he said. "We should call her Elena. And him?" Sarathiel asked. Jake studied his son, who was making small cooing sounds. Nathan, he said. Sarathiel nodded. Elena and Nathan. The first of their kind. The babies were examined by the full medical team. What they found amazed and concerned them. Elena and Nathan were not simply mixed genetics. Their DNA had formed something entirely new, a perfect blend that should not have been possible. When baby Elena sneezed an hour after birth, a small puff of flame came out. She looked surprised by it. Elena and Nathan grew impossibly fast. Within 6 months, they looked like human toddlers of 3 years old. Within a year, they appeared to be 6. The rapid growth scared everyone, especially Jake and Sarathiel. Dr. Lisa Cameron examined the twins every week. Their cells are dividing at 5 times the normal human rate, she explained to the worried parents. But slower than pure Drakkar young, they are developing at a pace between both species. Jake watched his children with a mixture of pride and fear. They were beautiful and terrifying all at once. Elena had dark hair like his, but it had purple highlights that shifted in the light. Nathan's hair was lighter, almost silver, and his eyes were constantly changing color depending on his mood. The twins were also developing abilities that neither species fully understood. Elena showed an early talent for energy manipulation. When she was angry, the lights in the room would flicker and dim. When she was happy, they would glow brighter. At age 2 in human equivalent years, she accidentally absorbed the energy from a power cell just by touching it. Nathan's abilities were different, but equally powerful. He seemed to understand technology instinctively. At 18 months old, he figured out how to unlock a security door just by touching the panel. By age 2, he was communicating with the palace computer systems through direct contact, no interface needed. But the most concerning development was their empathic sensitivity. Both children could feel emotions from everyone around them. Nathan especially struggled with this. He would sometimes start crying for no apparent reason because he felt someone's sadness from several rooms away. "They are too open," Sarathiel said one night, watching Nathan sleep fitfully. "They absorb everything around them. It is overwhelming for them. How do we help them?" Jake asked. "I do not know," Sarathiel admitted. "No Drakkar child has had abilities this strong this young, and certainly no human child has experienced anything like this." Dr. Lisa worked with Drakkar healers to develop treatments. They created mental exercises to help the twins control their abilities. It helped somewhat, but Elena and Nathan still had episodes where their powers would surge out of control. The first major incident happened when Elena was 3 years old in appearance. She had been playing in the garden when a guard accidentally stepped on her favorite toy, breaking it. Elena's anger flared instantly. Energy poured out of her in a wave, creating a pulse that knocked everyone nearby off their feet. The pulse was so strong it cracked the stone walls of the garden. No one was seriously hurt, but everyone was shaken. Elena burst into tears, horrified by what she had done. Jake rushed to comfort her, but she pushed him away, afraid she might hurt him too. "I am a monster," Elena sobbed. "Just like the people say." "No," Jake said firmly, pulling her into a hug despite her protests. "You are not a monster. You just have powers you are learning to control. Everyone has accidents when they are learning." But the incident made the news. Video footage spread across both human and Drakkar networks. People who already feared the hybrids pointed to it as proof that they were dangerous. Senator Victoria Lang held a press conference on Earth. "This is what I warned you about," Lang said, showing the footage repeatedly. "These creatures cannot control themselves. Today it was a broken wall. Tomorrow it might be broken bodies. How long until they hurt someone?" The political pressure intensified. Some human colonies started passing laws banning hybrids from entering their space. Drakkar separatist groups grew larger, demanding that the twins be placed under guard and restricted. Nathan's incident was different, but equally troubling. At age 4 in appearance, he was visiting the Palace Communication Center with his parents. He had always been fascinated by the technology. While the adults were talking, Nathan reached out and touched the main computer console. His consciousness merged with the computer system. Suddenly, Nathan was everywhere in the network. He could see every communication, access every file, control every system connected to the palace grid. It was too much information, too fast. Nathan's mind could not handle it all. He accidentally triggered a shutdown of the entire palace power grid. Lights went out across the complex. Security systems failed, Life support in some areas stopped working. It took technicians 4 hours to restore everything and disconnect Nathan from the system. Nathan was unconscious for 2 days after the incident. When he woke up, he was terrified. There were so many voices, he said weakly. So many minds in the machines. I could not tell where I ended and they began. Jake and Sarathiel made a difficult decision. They needed to protect their children from the growing hostility. And they needed to give Elena and Nathan space to learn control without constant scrutiny. They decided to leave civilized space. We will find an uninhabited world, Jake said, somewhere far from politics and fear. We can raise them there until they are old enough to handle their powers better. Sarathiel agreed, though it pained her to abandon her throne. The council can manage without me for a time. Our children need us more than the Empire does. The news caused an uproar on both sides. The Drakkar Council reluctantly accepted Sarathiel's temporary abdication. The United Earth Assembly passed a resolution declaring the exile justified. Both sides claimed victory, happy to have the problem out of sight. But for Jake and Sarathiel, it felt like failure. They were being driven away from their homes because people feared what they had created. On the day of departure, Commander Amy Foster came to say goodbye. She had become a friend to the family over the years. I am sorry it came to this, she said. So are we, Jake replied. But we will protect our children no matter what. As the family prepared to board their ship, young Nathan tugged on his father's sleeve. Why do they hate us, he asked. What did we do wrong? Jake knelt down to his son's eye level. You did nothing wrong, he said. Sometimes people fear what they do not understand. But that is their problem, not yours. Will we ever come back? Elena asked. She was holding her mother's hand tightly. Sarathiel looked down at her daughter. Yes, she said. One day when you are older and stronger, we will return, and you will show everyone that they were wrong to fear you. The ship they took was called the Wanderer. It was small but comfortable, designed for long-range exploration. Jake piloted it personally, heading for a star system that had been charted but never colonized. A world called Haven's Edge. Haven's Edge was beautiful. It had blue oceans, green forests, and mountains that touched the clouds. There were no sentient species, just wildlife that was generally harmless. It was perfect for their needs. They built a home near a waterfall using both human technology and Drakkar abilities to create something that suited their unique family. The children had space to run and practice their abilities without fear of hurting anyone. Years passed. Elena and Nathan continued growing rapidly until they reached what looked like their early 20s. Then their aging slowed dramatically, their Drakkar heritage asserting itself. They would live for centuries, maybe millennia, long enough to outlive their father. Jake taught them what he could about being human, the value of compassion, the importance of protecting those weaker than yourself, the beauty of brief moments fully lived. Sarathiel taught them Drakkar wisdom, patience, long-term thinking, the weight of power and the responsibility it brings. Elena mastered her energy abilities. She could transform into a dragon now, her form spanning 200 feet. Her scales were unique, shifting colors like her eyes, appearing almost metallic. She could absorb different types of energy and redirect them, creating shields or powerful blasts. Nathan developed his technological empathy into something remarkable. He could interface with any machine, understand any code, and even sense the basic consciousness in computer systems. His dragon form was darker than his sister's, seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. He could create fields that disrupted other technology or enhanced it, but their time in exile was not easy. The twins knew about the worlds they had left behind. Nathan could access communications networks from Haven's Edge, monitoring the news. They saw how both human and Drakkar societies continued to develop without them. They felt like they were wasting their lives hiding. We could do so much, Elena said one day. She was 16 years old in appearance, but mentally and emotionally mature far beyond that. We have these abilities. Why are we hiding here when we could be helping people? Because the people do not want our help, Sarathiel said sadly. They want us gone. Then they are fools, Elena said angrily. Energy crackled around her hands, responding to her emotion. Jake put a hand on her shoulder and the energy calmed. Maybe they are, he said. But we cannot force people to accept us. They have to come to that choice on their own. Nathan had been quiet during this conversation. His empathic senses were broader than his sister's. able to feel emotions across vast distances. "Something is wrong," he said suddenly. "I sense fear. So much fear." "From multiple worlds, what do you mean?" Sarathiel asked. Nathan closed his eyes, concentrating. "I do not know exactly, but something bad is happening. Really bad. People are dying." They accessed the communication networks and discovered the news. An alien species was attacking colonized worlds. Not just human colonies or Drakkar territories, but both. These aliens... The Wanderer approached the Nexus, a massive space station that served as the joint headquarters for human and Drakkar forces. It had been 15 years since Jake, Sarathiel, and the twins had left civilized space. Now they were returning to a universe at war. Admiral Ryan Clark met them personally at the docking bay. He looked exhausted, with deep lines on his face that had not been there before. But when he saw the family, he managed to smile. "Thank you for coming," Ryan said. "I know what it cost you." Jake shook his hand. "Tell us what we are facing." They gathered in the command center, a massive room with holographic displays showing the current battle situation. It was bad, very bad. Red markers indicated lost worlds. There were 37 of them now scattered across both human and Drakkar space. The Voidborn appeared without warning 2 months ago, Ryan explained. "They are like nothing we have ever seen. They exist partially in our dimension and partially in higher dimensions that we cannot perceive. Our weapons pass through them without effect. Drakkar magic and fire cannot touch them. They simply consume bioenergy from planets, killing every living thing." "What about evacuations?" Sarathiel asked. "We have saved some," a Drakkar commander named Keltharis said. "But not enough. The Voidborn move faster than our ships. By the time we detect them, they have already started feeding. Millions die before we can evacuate." Elena studied the holographic displays. Her eyes, which had been brown when they entered, shifted to a bright gold as she concentrated. "Show me sensor data from an attack," she said. Ryan pulled up recordings from the most recent Voidborn assault. Elena watched carefully, seeing the strange energy signatures the creatures left behind. "They exist in multiple dimensions," she said. "That is why normal weapons do not work. You are only hitting their shadow in our dimension, not their true form." "Can you hit their true form?" Ryan asked. "Maybe," Elena said. "I can perceive higher dimensional space. It is part of my energy manipulation abilities, but I have never tried to attack something there." Nathan had been silent, his eyes closed. His empathic senses were reaching out, trying to understand the Voidborn. "They are intelligent," he said suddenly. "Not like us, but they think. They feel. Mostly they feel hunger. Endless, consuming hunger. Can you communicate with them?" Ryan asked. "I do not know," Nathan admitted. "Their minds are so different, but I might be able to reach them if I get close enough." The plan was desperate and dangerous. Elena and Nathan would confront the Voidborn at the next world they attacked. Elena would try to fight them in higher dimensional space while Nathan attempted to communicate with them. It had never been tried before, and no one knew if it would work. "You do not have to do this," Jake said to his children as they prepared. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Elena said. She had transformed into her dragon form for the mission. Her scales gleamed like stars, reflecting light in ways that seemed impossible. "This is what we were born for, Dad. To bridge gaps that others cannot cross." Nathan stood beside his sister in his own dragon form, darker and more mysterious. "We will be careful," he promised. The Voidborn attacked a world called Titan's Rest 3 days later. It was a human colony with 2 million inhabitants. The evacuation began immediately, but it was clear they would not save everyone in time. Elena and Nathan flew ahead of the fleet. Jake and Sarathiel watched from the command deck of the flagship. Sarathiel had taken her dragon form as well, ready to support her children if needed. Jake could only watch, connected to Elena and Nathan through the empathic bonds that linked their family. The Voidborn was massive. It appeared as a dark shadow that blotted out stars. Traditional sensors could barely detect it, but Elena saw it clearly. In higher dimensional space, the creature was vast beyond comprehension, a being that existed across multiple realities at once. "I see you," Elena said. Though she knew it could not understand her words, she began to gather energy, pulling it from nearby stars, from the radiation in space, from every available source. Her body glowed brighter and brighter until she was like a small sun. The Voidborn noticed her. For the first time, it encountered something that could perceive its true form. It turned its attention toward Elena, curious and hungry. Nathan reached out with his mind, trying to understand the creature's consciousness. What he found was alien but not evil. The Voidborn was ancient, older than galaxies. It had consumed worlds for millions of years, driven by a hunger it did not understand. Elena attacked. She projected energy directly into higher dimensional space, striking at the Voidborn's true form. The creature recoiled, surprised. It had never been hurt before, but the Voidborn fought back. It lashed out with tendrils of dark energy that existed outside normal space. Elena barely dodged them, feeling the deadly cold they radiated even in higher dimensions. On the command deck, alarms blared. "The Voidborn is changing tactics," a technician yelled. "It is focusing on Elena and Nathan instead of the planet." "Good," Ryan said grimly. "That gives us time to evacuate more people." Elena and the Voidborn clashed in a battle that most observers could barely comprehend. Energy flashed across multiple dimensions. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around them. Elena was powerful, but the Voidborn had fed on thousands of worlds. It was stronger. Nathan saw his sister struggling. He made a decision. Instead of just trying to communicate with the Voidborn, he opened himself completely to it. He let the creature sense his mind, his emotions, his consciousness. The Voidborn paused, confused. It had never encountered a mind like Nathan's before, one that could touch its thoughts directly. Nathan showed it images from his life: love, family, joy, sadness, all the emotions that made life worth living. The creature did not understand at first. It had existed alone for so long, feeding without thought. But Nathan persisted. He showed the Voidborn what it was destroying: the billions of individual lives, each one precious and unique. Elena sensed what her brother was doing. She stopped attacking and joined him. She opened herself as a conduit, channeling energy from a nearby star directly toward the Voidborn, but not as a weapon, as an offering. "You do not have to take," Elena said through the connection Nathan had established. "Energy exists everywhere. We can give you what you need without destroying worlds." The Voidborn hesitated. It sensed the vast energy Elena was channeling. Pure power freely given. It reached out tentatively and drew on that energy. For the first time in its existence, it felt satisfaction without destruction. Nathan pushed deeper into the creature's consciousness. He found the source of its hunger. The Voidborn came from a universe where energy was scarce. It had learned to feed on living worlds because that was the only way to survive. But this universe was different. Energy was abundant here. "You do not have to be alone," Nathan told it. "You do not have to be hungry." The Voidborn pulled back from Titan's rest. The dark shadow began to fade. Through the connections, Elena and Nathan felt something amazing. The creature was learning. It was changing. "I understand now," the Voidborn communicated, its thoughts becoming clearer as it grasped the concept of language. "I have been causing pain, ending stories before they finish. I did not know there was another way." Elena continued channeling energy to it. The strain was enormous, but she held steady. "There is always another way," she said. The Voidborn withdrew completely from Titan's rest. The evacuation ships below detected the change immediately. The deadly energy drain had stopped. The planet was saved. But the Voidborn did not leave entirely. It remained near Elena and Nathan, learning from them. Nathan showed it how to draw energy from stars directly. Elena taught it how to perceive the beauty of life instead of just seeing it as food. "I will leave your worlds alone," the Voidborn promised. "I will return to the spaces between galaxies and feed only on stars and cosmic radiation. I will not consume your stories anymore." As the creature departed, it did something unexpected. It left behind a gift. A complex mathematical formula appeared in Nathan's mind. Instructions for creating stable wormholes, technology far beyond what either humans or Drakkar possessed. "So you can explore beyond your galaxy," the Voidborn explained. "So you can write new stories in places I have already emptied. Give life to worlds I made dead. That is balance." "That is right." Then it was gone, slipping away into higher dimensional space. Elena and Nathan returned to the flagship, exhausted but triumphant. Jake and Sarathiel rushed to embrace them. The entire command center erupted in cheers. "They did it," Ryan said, hardly believing what he had witnessed. "They saved us all." News of the victory spread across both human and Drakkar space within hours. The twins who had been exiled, feared, and called monsters had just saved both species from extinction. The political landscape shifted overnight. Senator Victoria Lang tried to hold a press conference claiming the threat had been exaggerated. But no one listened to her anymore. Her fear-mongering had been proven wrong in the most dramatic way possible. On Draconis Prime, the Flamekeepers disbanded. Even Lord Drakthos, still in prison, admitted defeat. "I was wrong," he said in a statement. "The hybrids are not our end. They are our salvation." 10 years passed. The universe transformed in ways no one had expected. Elena and Nathan became leaders of a new movement,